On this week's episode of TWB, we are breaking down the Bills' Week 1 victory over the defending Super Bowl champion LA Rams.
You're now listening to the Wandering Buffalo podcast with your hosts, Andrew Chang and Justin Goddard.
Bills Mafia, welcome in and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Wandering Buffalo podcast. My name is Justin. I'll be your host tonight. Our show is brought to you by the Buffalo FAMBase podcast network, the originators of Bills Mafia. And Bills Mafia, how are we feeling today? First victory of the season, first victory Monday, and boy, it was kind of a beatdown. And I'm not going as far as to call this game a blowout. Obviously, taking down the defending Super Bowl champions 31-10, but a three touchdown win going into their house on the road, opening day in the spotlight, and there was some sloppy football on both sides of the ball. But when you look at it and the Bills having 4 turnovers and still coming away with a 21-point victory over the champions, it's got to get you excited for this season. It's got to get you revved up for where we're at. And there was part of me that was going into this season knowing the team that we have and knowing how far this team could possibly go. But there was part of me that was a little bit nervous with all this media attention, being picked as Super Bowl favorites, all these kinds of expectations that I've never really seen in my adult life on our football team, and how the team would respond to that. And coming out looking like that week 1, it kind of puts a lot of that to rest for me. So we're going to dive right into the game and just talk about some of the things I liked and didn't like on both sides of the ball. And then we're going to wrap it up for this week. So starting on offense, I'm going to start with the big boys up front. And I think they had, overall as a unit, a very good game. When you consider on the other side of the ball, you got Aaron Donald, probably the best football player I've ever seen play. We have witnessed him single-handedly just ruin games for us. And I think back to 2 years ago, we were playing the Rams, and team gets off to this really hot start, and all of a sudden the Rams just start rumbling back and end up taking the lead, and we have to win on some late game heroics from Josh Allen. But the turnaround in that game for the Rams was really just this switch flipping for Aaron Donald. He just kept getting in the backfield, causing havoc, causing turnovers, getting sacks, and thought for the most part we were able to do a pretty good job of containing him. Now we did see, Rick Bates get matched up with him one-on-one, and that was one of the sacks that the Rams got. That's a tough assignment for any offensive lineman in the league, just getting matched up with Aaron Donald one-on-one. So I'm not mad at that. The run blocking looked improved from last year. We saw it kind of pick up to me where we left off last year. Having Roger Saffold in the fold helps there, and I thought overall the run blocking looked about where I want it to be. As far as pass protection, kept Josh Allen clean for the most part. Obviously ends up with 2 sacks. I put one of those kind of on Josh. He was holding on to the ball for a while. They did hold up a little bit, but again, when you have Aaron Donald on the other side of the ball, you're going to get a couple in there. And they also did a very good job of, when the play is kind of breaking down and Josh is working off script, they run like these triple option plays where Josh is rolling out like he might run, he might throw. And one of the small things that I don't think gets enough appreciation is the ability for those linemen to not wander themselves downfield and, wipe out a big play where where we have an ineligible man downfield, and that's something that we did see quite a few times last year, and just having that knowledge that you have Josh Allen back there and plays like that happen to stay where you need to be and stay disciplined. I think that's something that won't get talked about a ton, but something that's very valuable. And two plays I think of for this example is the first touchdown to Gabe Davis, where they sell the Josh Allen bootleg. It looks like the Rams have been game planning for this one. They know Josh likes to bootleg it to get those third down conversions, and Gabe Davis is running down the field wide open. And the other one, it didn't end up being a successful play. It was, in the red zone. Josh is rolling out, and he hits Diggs in the end zone. He ends up not pulling in the reception, but it looked like Josh could have possibly run that in. Was able to throw it, and again, that's really only possible to have a successful play there if your offensive line is playing disciplined. So overall, I don't really have much for complaints on the offensive line. I thought they did an overall very good job this week. And one of the benefactors of that was some of the running backs. I thought Devin Singletary had a very good game, and this is the type of complementary football that we've kind of come to expect. We hear a lot of last year, the balance of run and pass and what that would look like, and are we going to end up at a 50-50 split? I think overall had in the range of like 15 to 20 rushing attempts, and the leading ball carrier was Devin Singletary, and he had 8 carries for 48 yards. He adds 2 receptions for 14 yards in the game, and with that kind of limited sample size for touches, I mean, averaging 6 yards on the ground I'll take that all day, every day. I thought he looked decisive in his cuts. He was running physical, dropping his shoulder, and with what happened with the other 2 running backs we'll touch on next, I think he just kind of came in week 1 and just reestablished he's that dude right now, and if anybody wants to get any touches in that backfield, that's the guy that they have to pry it from. So our other 2 running backs had a little bit of struggles, and I thought Zach Moss actually, the numbers weren't really there. He ends up with 6 carries for 15 yards, adds 21 yards on 6 catches. But overall, I thought he was kind of looking more like he was running more natural. He looked like he was also, making more decisive cuts, getting downhill. Looked to have a little juice in his step. And again, it's kind of hard on the limited carries here. But that was the most decisive, strongest running that I think I've seen from Zach Moss since like his rookie year. So hopefully with, some more touches, he's able to really emerge and have a breakout year as a complement to Devin Singletary. One thing that I really didn't like, and this is from the next guy as well, is the fumble. Sean McDermott preaches it through and through. The need to take care of the football and be able to keep those drives going. And, in most games, with most teams, if you have 4 turnovers, you're not going to come away from that game with a victory. And fortunately in this game, the defense was able to answer with some strong possessions. They also turned the ball back over to the Bills a few times, so it kind of balanced out a little bit, but never like seeing the football on the ground. And bring us to our next guy, James Cook. Man, I feel for him on this one. You get your first live NFL action, and you fumbled the ball, and bro, I'm not mentally tough enough to come back from that. That's the only reason I'm not in the NFL, right? But I'm not sure how I feel about the handling of that fumble. I know we've seen it in the past from McDermott. It's kind of, you're not always getting that second chance in a game, and I think for him being, a rookie and it being his first touch, I would have liked to see him at least get, another carry or two later in the game. But I guess I also understand it to an extent of, the turnovers were adding up in this game. I guess when you get towards the end of the game and you really want to make sure you protect that lead and seal it away, I guess I understand it to an extent. I just, for him being a rookie and it's his first game, I kind of would have liked to see, just a carry or two on, the last series or whatever, to just kind of be like, hey man, get back in there, keep your chin up. There's gonna be another touch for you coming. So I guess I kind of see that both ways. I guess it's probably a little personal bias too. I'm really excited for who I think James Cook is going to be as a player for us. So it's kind of every time he checks into the game, my eyeballs are glued to him. So wanted to see him get a little bit more run, but I guess it is what it is. The Buffalo Bills receivers had a freaking day, and I love seeing this, that it wasn't just the top two guys. The ball was, spread around to kind of all the receivers, tight end, running backs getting involved. But when you're talking your big two, the receivers that the other team knows all week you want to get incorporated. When you're talking about Stephon Diggs being that Pro Bowl athlete, Gabe Davis, what he's been able to do so far in the league, and they're still able to come away with a touchdown apiece. Diggs goes for 8 catches, 122 yards against one of the best cornerbacks in the league in Jalen Ramsey. And I saw a stat, I'm not sure I remember who posted it, but when targeting Jalen Ramsey, Josh Allen had a perfect quarterback rating. And in my head, I like to think that that's a little personal vendetta for when Jalen Ramsey called him trash. Josh doesn't forget. He wanted to make sure he made him look silly out there. But then we have Gabe Davis adding 4 catches, 88 yards, and a touchdown, showing that he's still making those down the field plays, getting big chunks of yardage on catches. Crowder adding 3 catches for 28 yards. I thought there was a little meat left on the bone with Crowder. Seemed to start off the game kind of slow and come on a little bit later. And, he did miss a lot of time in the preseason, and just coming to a new team, hasn't really worked with Josh all that much. Maybe there's still some chemistry developing there, and I see that on the one interception that Josh Allen threw that was going Crowder's way. That ball was a little bit behind Crowder. I don't know. Maybe Josh was expecting him to sit down a little bit in the zone. Maybe it was just kind of a little bit of an errant pass. But, to still be able to contribute 3 catches, get some yardage in your first game, it was encouraging to see. And then McKenzie jumps in, and he also gets a touchdown. Now, he also had a fumble, and that's a little bit concerning to me, especially when you're having kind of this 3-way competition between Crowder, McKenzie, and Khalil Shakir. And, it seems like McKenzie was kind of running away with at least sharing that job with Crowder. And, the fumbles are something that we've seen from McKenzie in the past, and it was more so in the special teams department. But if that's something that he's not able to shore up, like I said, we've seen it from McDermott before. If you're not taking care of the football, you're not going to get the touches. And it's something that I don't want to see happen, because I think McKenzie really adds an explosive dynamic to this offense with his speed. But you got to take care of the football. Save the best for last here, Josh Allen. Bills Mafia, that's your quarterback. And This dude is absolutely special, and the more I get to watch Josh Allen, the more I just can't really fathom that he's on our team. Can't believe that I was upset when the Bills drafted him because I wanted old Josh Rosen. Glad I'm not in charge of scouting. But Josh ends the day with a quarterback rating of a 112, and that's with 2 interceptions thrown into the mix. You guys said earlier, the first interception you can't put on him. He puts the ball in McKenzie's hands, it goes through. Team comes away with it, or the Rams come away with it. Kind of a weird fluky play. We've seen these things happen before. It'll happen again. And the second interception, I put that one half on Josh. I thought Crowder could have done a little bit of a better job fighting back towards the ball, but it was kind of low and behind him. But he ends the day 26 of 31, 297 yards, 3 touchdowns, adds a bunch on the ground. And what I loved the most about how Josh Allen was playing in this game was his face was all business. He looked like he was coming in like he's got something to prove this year, like he's not playing any games. And then at the same time, you see him break off a run and take a pretty hard hit and tackle, and he pops back up and the camera zooms in on him and he's laughing and smiling. So as much as he's coming into this season not messing around, not playing games, he's also out there having the time of his life. And I just love seeing that from my quarterback. You don't always have to be, cussing at your teammates for perfection because that's what you demand. He's out there having a ball with these dudes. And I mean, he came out, he looked poised. He looked accurate. He was getting the ball out quick, keeping the offense on schedule. He's really developed, and I think it's the most encouraging development to his game of taking what the defense is giving him. And it's not always, looking for that home run ball, and if it's not there, he's taking off and running. He's going through his reads. He's taking the 5-yard passes, living to see another down. He's running when he has to. He's throwing dudes to the ground with stiff arms. That's my quarterback, man. And I thought it was a great start to the season for him. And that was against a defense that was a very good defense last year. And granted, they lost Von Miller. Obviously, he ends up with us. Not mad about that. But still, an overall solid defense that they're playing against. And despite all the turnovers and whatnot, I didn't really have any doubt in my mind that this game was going to be for the Bills. You go into half tied at 10-10, but when you really look at how the game was going, the Bills offense was doing really whatever they wanted to all game, and drives just happened to get cut short on turnovers. Other than that, the Rams weren't really putting down anything that looked like it was slowing down the Bills. So overall, very pleased with the offense in the first game. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to touch on special teams and get into the defense. Stick around.
Hey, this is Brother Bill. Now back to the show.
Welcome back, and thank you again for joining me on this week's episode of the Wandering Buffalo podcast. I just want to take a second. If you haven't done so already and you've made it this far into the show, go ahead and subscribe. We have content coming out every Monday. It's going to be a historical, amazing Buffalo Bills football season. So I want to make sure you're not missing any of the content. Again, we come out every Monday. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. We're going to dive back into the show. I'm going to touch on special teams quickly because I do want to wrap up with the defense, who were truly my heroes of the day, despite everything the offense was able to do. And overall, special teams is pretty easy. I got no real complaints here. If we're nitpicking, I didn't like the Tyler Bass kickoff out of bounds, but those happen once in a while. It gave the Rams great field position, but obviously in the end doesn't end up mattering. I loved our punting. I love seeing another game where the Bills didn't have to punt, and the biggest thing I have to worry about with the punter is how he is at holding the ball for Tyler Bass field goals. And Tyler Bass was perfect on the day. 4 for 4 on PAT kicks and 1 for 1 on his field goal attempts. So Bass remains being an awesome kicker. Love having that be something that, I'm not constantly worried about. Are we going to get points out of this drive? If Bass comes out to kick a field goal, I'm feeling pretty confident that it's going through. Punt returns, not really much to talk about. I was kind of surprised to see Khalil Shakir inactive before the game started. He's really saw the bulk of the return duties through the preseason, so I was kind of expecting him active on every game day, if for nothing else other than returning punts. But Crowder came out and he looked comfortable back there. He looked like he was making good decisions, took care of the ball, had one pretty nice return. No complaints on special teams, and hope it stays that way throughout the remainder of the season. So we're going to dive into the defense, and I'm going to start with the secondary. I thought the secondary overall played very well, and there's times throughout the game that I kind of have to remind myself, Trey White's not out there, right? It seems like such an obvious thing that you wouldn't even have to tell yourself. But there's so many times that I'm watching the Bills play football and the opposing offense just steers clear of Trey White all game anyways, and you kind of forget that he's out there and the job that he's doing because, you don't see his number called very often. So we're talking a secondary with Dane Jackson, who, is still a young player, hasn't got a ton of starting action in the NFL. And starting across from him, Christian Benford, rookie 6th-round pick. And I'll start by saying it is a little concerning to me that Benford's getting the nod over Elam. That kind of got put to rest for me when, we did see Elam check into the game, and he also played pretty well. No real complaints there. So I think this is more of a testament to Benford and the work that he's been able to put in to get up there and compete for one of these 2 starting jobs, but also the coaching staff and just the way they're able to develop cornerbacks. Like, it's ridiculous. And we saw it with Levi Wallace for years being an undrafted free agent. We're seeing it with Dane Jackson. He was a 6th or a 7th round pick. You got Christian Benford, a 6th round pick. And you don't see a ton of players across the league that come in, get drafted in the 6th round and they walk into, week 1 of the NFL season and are able to come in and make an impact and play well. And overall, I think that's what we got from Benford and Dane Jackson. Poyer and Hyde at safety, same top-level elite play that we're used to from them. I think that they do contribute a lot to these cornerbacks looking good and just kind of everybody knowing their role within the zone. We end up with interceptions from Poyer and Dane Jackson, and we hold Matt Stafford to 240 yards passing and a quarterback rating of 63. And I kind of do keep this in a little context of, Odell Beckham, obviously not with the Rams right now. He had the injury. He was, very helpful to the team down the stretch last year. Van Jefferson also missing from this game with an injury. So they were, a bit thin at receiver. All that being said, you're still trotting out 2 really young cornerbacks, and Matt Stafford is no slouch at quarterback. He's had a lot of success in this league. Obviously, won a Super Bowl last year, and to really be able to stifle that passing game, especially in the second half when the Bills start scoring points and the Rams are trying to catch up, to really limit what they're able to do in the passing game. It says a lot and speaks a lot to what these young guys were able to do out there. And this isn't even mentioning Taron Johnson, who I thought had a great game as well. Getting matched up an awful lot with Cooper Kupp. And what I liked about the secondary the most is every player in the secondary was active in, getting up and helping in run support and being willing to make tackles. I will say that Cooper Kupp did go out there and have himself a game. It's Cooper Kupp. He was the Triple Crown winner in the NFL last year. He led the league in receiving yards, touchdowns, catches. The dude's a freak, and he's going to eat against pretty much every team in the NFL. So I feel like it's kind of a pick your poison thing, and try to limit what he does. Make sure you make the tackle after he catches the ball, but also limiting what all the other receivers were able to contribute. We know Cooper Kupp is going to get his touches, so let's make sure that nobody else on that offense is beating us. So overall, kudos to the secondary, held up really well through the first game. The linebackers, I thought Milano and Edmonds both had good games. Kind of start to see what they're able to do with a defensive line that's, keeping them clean the way they're supposed to be. We see respectively 7 and 5 tackles from the linebackers, both leading the team in tackles. And I thought they looked loose out there. I thought they looked like they were playing a little more free. I saw Edmonds trigger downhill a little bit more instinctively than I've seen in the past. And what I really noticed, in particular in the run game, is they were able to get in there and fill holes kind of right at the line of scrimmage. And I didn't see a ton of, I have to shed this blocker before I get in there and help in the run game. And that brings me to the final point on defense, my final point on the episode, and that is the defensive line. And for me, I saved the best for last here. Allen was great. Diggs was great. Davis had an awesome game. But we kind of grown to know what to expect from those players. I don't want to take it for granted. I don't want to say, it was expected, but we've seen these great games out of these players. What we haven't really seen is consistent production from the defensive line, and we've seen Bean throw assets at it. We've seen him throw draft picks at it, money, and just haven't really seen the fruits of the investment for me. And in this game, I thought we got contributions from every player that rotated in. Von Miller, still can't believe that he's on the Buffalo Bills. Against his former team, making an immediate impact. He comes away with 2 sacks. That double ghost move sack that he had was an absolute freaking thing of beauty. And that's not a double move many players at all in the NFL can pull off. And I've watched that probably about 100 times. I just can't stop watching it. We get seven total sacks from the front 4. Now, this is a game where the Rams stayed in 11 personnel the entire game. Matt Stafford is a quarterback that's very good playing against the blitz. He's very good at, seeing where it's coming from and finding the guy that fills that open space. So the Bills went out and they blitzed 0 times. So to be able to come away from a game with just your front 4 generating the pass rush, and you come away with 7 sacks, that's a ridiculous number to me. And the Bills did a lot of getting pressure last year that didn't necessarily translate to sacks. Well, in this first game, we see them get the 7 sacks. We had 42 total sacks last year. So through 1 week of the season, we're a sixth of the way to matching last year's total. And that is super encouraging to me. I feel like defensive line has kind of been, it's been like that one area that could really unlock the next tier of this team. And granted, it was only 1 week. I'm not expecting them to have 7 sacks every week. But the way that it happened for me was very encouraging. You see a couple guys in Epinesa and Boogie Basham who have kind of been coming along on this development, probably not as fast as a lot of us wanted. We see them both get a sack this week. Epinesa had 1.5. Groot adds a sack. Jordan Phillips. How about Jordan Phillips, y'all? This dude loves playing in Buffalo. All of last year in Arizona, he had 2.5 sacks. Week 1 with Buffalo Bills, 1 game. This dude comes in and gets 1.5 sacks. So just listing off those names, there's contributions on the sacks from pretty much all the pass rushers. And then you got the unsung heroes, the big dudes in the middle, Daquan Jones and Tim Settle. I thought they both did a great job in the middle of anchoring down, eating up blocks, freeing up opportunities for these guys around them, and really contributing in the success of stuffing the run game. And somebody I haven't even mentioned yet, Ed Oliver. Obviously, he only played about a half. One of the things I didn't like from the game is that he did, leave with the ankle injury. Kind of waiting to see more information on that. They said on the broadcast that he was probable to return. And then we saw him at the end of the game in a walking boot. So I'm hoping that, we're more on the he could have returned if he wanted to time frame, and just with the way the game was going, the contributions that we were getting from the other defensive linemen, that, it was kind of just, let's give him some extra rest. No need to, risk anything. These other guys are playing great. And I guess that's kind of my overall takeaway of this defensive line is we've seen this Bills team, want to rotate the defensive line, keep guys fresh out there. And, it's kind of had mixed results in the past because you would have these drop-offs between players. And it wasn't really this, perfect mix. And just with this 1 game sample size of, I wasn't even really looking at who was coming in and out. I was just, watching the defensive line and seeing the production and seeing the havoc that they were creating. And then it was kind of after the play, I was like, who was it that time? They all had opportunities where they are in the backfield, rushing the quarterback, getting, quarterback hits, quarterback hurries, and affecting the passing game that way. And in particular with these young cornerbacks and the way they're going to be tested early and often, I think the biggest thing that you can do to help them be successful is to get this pressure and force quarterbacks into quicker, bad decisions. And that all starts with the front four and getting that natural pass rush from the front four. So absolutely loved what I saw from the defensive line this game. I hope we see it continue throughout the season. And if we get anything close to this throughout the rest of the season, not only are we going to see ridiculous success with this team, we're going to see ridiculous sack numbers. So that's going to wrap it up for tonight's episode. If you have anything that you wanted to talk about from this game that I did not discuss, go ahead and drop it in the comments. There was a ton to like from this game, ton of things to be encouraged by. But like I said, there was still negatives from this game, and maybe that's the best thing that comes from this game. You get to beat up on the Super Bowl champions, and McDermott still has a ton of stuff to show you in the film room about taking care of the ball and mistakes that were made. So hopefully that translates to a little bit cleaner football going on and some more dominance throughout the season. I want to thank you again for joining me on tonight's episode. If you want to hit us up on social media at all, you can find us anywhere at The Wandering Buffalo. If you want to leave anything for myself, you can find me on any social media at jgods22. And the other face of the show, Andrew, you can find him at 2changs. That's going to wrap it up for tonight's episode. We'll see you next Monday. Go Bills!